Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. I, of course, am here with your daily mortgage update, the only place on the web where we get together, talk about what's going on with rates and pricing each and every weekday morning. And so glad to have you here. If you're here this morning and you're live, say good morning. Remember, you can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Coming to you back from my desk here at Smoky Mountains, done with my boys' trip, at least for now. So settling back in. Man, I'm a little tired though from coming in late last night. So if you're here this morning, say good morning. If you're watching on the replay, do us a favor. Just give me hashtag replay in the comments. Helps me to figure out why Facebook says I have 400 people that watched and only 7 of you put hashtag replay. So I get the idea of how many people actually watch it live when you do that. So do me a favor, take a minute and do that for me. Today we will be talking about, has this rally hit a wall, right? So that's kind of important. We're gonna go a little bit deeper on that. We're gonna talk about the jobs markdown. Today is the BLS non-farm payroll revisions, annual revisions. It's called the jobs markdown, and we'll talk about what that is, why that matters, why we care, and how much lower could rates go. That's going to be a magic question, and it's one that's important that you learn how to answer with consumers, because they're going to want to stall because they want to, everybody wants to get the best rates and they want rates to go lower, and nobody likes payments the way they are these days. So, but yeah, so let's go ahead and say hi to all the live folks here this morning. Who do we got this morning? Mike Morano, first one saying hello. Good morning, sir. Great to have you here. Randy Teagle, giddy up, my man. Mallory Foti, Otis, good morning. Mallory, saw your post on Facebook. I'll follow up with you more on that separate though. Mike Brown, good morning. Holly Johnson, great to see you as well. Ron Siegel, good morning, sir. National Ants on a Log Day, peanut butter on celery with raisins on top. I do like that. You're here this morning, not sure you're alive, still early on the West Coast. Mountain time with the 2 hours difference was kind of messing me up. Tim Klyla, good morning. Kelly Hamilton, Michael Love, Angela Walters, Deb Dickinson, great to have all of you here. Yeah, right. What kind of National Day calendar does he have? But who doesn't like peanut butter ants on a log? Thank you, Mr. Teagle. I am also glad my adventures were safe. Certainly always good to come home. So, all right, my friends, let's get into it. Let's go ahead and let's get started and go into all that good stuff. So let me bring up my screen and I'll share that with you all. All right. So pulling this up, let's go over to the technicals. We're going to start off with the technicals first and go over everything we got going on here this morning. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's see, zoom. Yep, got to refresh the page so I can scroll. All right, and I restarted, so I got to get Presentify. There we are. All right, so we got some Presentify going on. Yesterday, pricing came out. Bonds are right around here. End of the day, right around here. Just basically, I know that looks like it's kind of up, but it really is kind of flat on the day. We're down just a hair. I mean, if we draw a line, my line's a little crooked, but we're down like just a hair as pricing comes out, but not enough to get too worried about this morning. As we take a look here, mortgage bonds down. Oops, there it is. Mortgage bonds down 4 basis points on the day. But not enough to even kind of focus on. So yesterday, bonds improved early. You saw that from here. We started down low, improved by the time pricing came out. So we saw better rate sheets yesterday. Rate sheets basically looking at like 6.28. This is almost, it's got to be probably, I think, let's take a look here. We checked yesterday. It's probably the best rates since last September. So we want 24. There you go. So, I mean, last September, right? We were here. We are, at that definitely at the best levels here. But that's going to open the door. Everyone's going to think that things are going to continue to improve. You're going to hear a lot of that whole, well, the Fed's cutting rates are going to go lower. And that misunderstanding, that myth is being rewarded because of other conditions with the labor market and with inflation. Remember, when we see weak labor data, even in an environment where we weren't really watching for Fed rate cuts, because the Fed has been the center of our attention for a couple of years now. And it's like back in, I want to say it was like 14, 15, maybe. That was when oil, every day we watched oil because as oil prices moved, mortgage prices moved. But the Fed is not the center of our world normally. And when we see weak labor market data, then bonds improve. So, we're seeing that same kind of thing being rewarded here. Rate sheets are going to be flat. Like we said, basically what you're seeing on here. Rate sheets will be flat, and we shouldn't see much of a move unless we get a strong reaction to that markdown at 10 a.m. So let me do jobs markdown, and let's see Bloomberg. Remember, I showed you that chart yesterday. I'm going to pull it up again here if we can. Here it is. So let me pull that over to you, and let me scroll this over to the side. All right, good enough. So again, if we see a very large move like we did last year, this is a ridiculous revision. And that's what they're anticipating. They're anticipating an 800,000 to a million job revision. So if it were to come in lower than that, say it came in at 300,000, this would actually give you a negative reaction in bonds. But if it comes in here or higher, we could see a very strong reaction to that. Could see that this morning and at least wash out the small losses that we have here for bonds. And then taking a look at the 10-year treasury, it also has crept up just a hair or two. It was at 403, and yesterday it closed the day at 4.04. Right now it's at 4.05. So just a small move. Reprice risk on the day is low after this. There's a 3-year treasury auction this afternoon, but once we get that markdown data, there's really not much else going on. Tomorrow we get the wholesale inflation, and remember, the wholesale inflation data, normally not a big deal. Wholesale inflation, producer price index, right? But the problem was last month that producer price index showed the biggest surge in 3 years, and we saw a very strong reaction to wholesale inflation that we normally don't see, and it was because it was such a big jump last time. So it's, if we see another big jump coming in much higher than expected, it could throw us off a little bit, right? So when you look at mortgage-backed securities and we look at the bond chart, let me make this smaller. We'll bring this back down a little bit so we can. Here you go. All right. So taking a look here at the bond chart, you could see that it was, very much an up, 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 up. And we capped out here, and now we are starting to just a little bit, we're slipped down. Now this might not stay today, but we do want to watch it because we could see rate sheets hitting a wall. Today we're seeing signs the current rally has hit a wall, so it's possible that this might be it for now. We could see another jump past that if we get CPI inflation data that comes in, and markets, depending on how markets digest that data, we could see things continue to move higher than this. But we also might not. It could be, we could be hitting a wall here, and then we get some red candlesticks and to bring us back down here. Now, that's not enough to necessarily start freaking out and worrying about, because even if we do get this scenario, you'll see rate sheets that are going to creep a little bit higher, but we're not going to really see rates move higher from here. Rates are definitely not in a threat. It's not the right word, but close enough, of moving higher. We don't have to worry about that. So I think we're really good when it comes to that. Not much to worry about. So Mortgage Dog said the 2024 job revision comes out 20 minutes, right? Do we expect it to make an impact? Yeah, like I said, it does come out at 10 a.m. and I expect it to definitely have some kind of an impact. It's not going to be a huge swing. Markets are already expecting it to be a big miss. So if we show, when I say a big miss, meaning large revisions, bringing the number of jobs created in the last uh, before March 2025, bringing that down. Right. And again, that's going to open the door for Trump to be able to say that he inherited a much weaker labor condition than what was broadcast and what was shared. And so we'll see that spin on it. But if it does come in weaker, we could see a little bit of recovery, but I still don't think you'll see too much recovery here. It would have to come in. Imagine it came into something like redonkulous, like 1.2 million jobs less than what they expected. Then you would see bonds probably pick up 10, 15 basis points, maybe even 20 basis points. But if it comes in around the 800,000 that's expected, I don't think we're going to see too much of a move, but we could see enough to maybe see this negative washed out and maybe get flat on the day. But it does look, we're definitely, these are one of those, hey, it looks like bonds are going to take a breath and kind of recover from here. And again, that's normal. We see everything moves up, then it goes down, and you get some selling and some correction for a couple of days. Then it goes up, then it comes down, then it goes up. And, we see that over and over again. Even here, it went up and it came down from here and went up. These are green candlesticks because they started the day lower and moved higher. So it's green, but it's still a downward trend that went down and took a couple of days. So, but the reality is the spreads between the 10-year and mortgage-backed securities are better than they were a year ago. And that's why we're seeing rates that are just about maybe an eighth higher when you use Mortgage News Daily as a reference point. They're about an eighth of a point. We're at 6.25. Back then they were at six and an eighth. So, but plenty of ways with a little bit of fees, just paying a little bit to rebate, getting back under 6%. Consumers are going to be big on the fives. It's going to open the door. It doesn't make a huge difference in payment when you really do the math, but it's a psychological difference. And debt consolidation, refis, people getting things down into the fives, they can stomach that. So Ron Siegel said 800,000 is built into the pricing. Big variance either way could move the market. Yeah. Brandy said that's not a spin. That's true. What was the spin? Oh, about the thing. Anytime that stuff, it's still spin to me. Randy said that's the big myth, keeping folks on the sidelines. Which myth is that, Randy? Fill me in. What did we say that was? Randy said that's the big myth, keeping folks on the sideline. I'm just coming to see. That's the big myth, keeping folks on the sideline. That rates are going to get lower. That the Fed will cut rates. Either way. But taking a look. Speaking of the Fed, let's take a look here. And yeah, exactly. Ron said, am I the only one who is tired of hearing politicians on both sides talk about what they inherited? Exactly. But what's funny to me is it's almost like the quarterback. It really is. It's so funny. They get all the credit and all the blame. So, but let me pull this up. Why is this? Let me refresh this because it's very large. Come on. Load. Wow, something's up with this morning. There it goes. Okay. So taking a look here, we've seen, remember, this was about 12% yesterday. It's down to about 10%. Very small pullback for the idea that we'll see a half point rate cut. Ron and Mike Morano, do y'all still think that we will get that half point cut in a week? I don't. I do not think we will see a half point cut. I think we'll see a quarter point cut, which is, I think they need to start small. They don't want to make big moves. So, but October is looking like, again, markets believe that we'll get a quarter point cut September, quarter point cut in October. Markets believe that we will get another quarter point cut in December, and seeing a condition. Now, I could see where they actually have to do a half point cut in December if the labor market were to really. Oh, the myth of lower rates being inevitable. Yeah, exactly. Randy, thank you. That's and that's why we have to kind of have something to push back on them with and talk about this stuff, right? So, but anyway, notice that a couple of things here. Will Moran here, the Fed nominee that Trump is putting in to take Kugler's role. Will he be, through the process in time to vote at the Fed meeting? And it looks like, according to this article, the banking committee is going to push his nomination to the full Senate Wednesday, tomorrow. So, in his confirmation hearing last week, Moran pressed on whether he would keep his own counsel as a monetary policymaker, whether he would take direction from Trump. Of course, he said he would, be independent and blah, blah, blah. He also came out and talked about that he's got a primary residence that he bought in 2022 that he's now renting out. He disclosed that. Filing made public showed mortgage secured in 2022. And how is that different than Lisa Cook? As all of you know, if he lived for his primary residence for a year in 2023 and then rented it out, that's perfectly okay. That's acceptable. That's not what Lisa Cook did. So, and again, I don't think Lisa Cook, I think that was a witch hunt, but she did do the wrong thing. There's no lying about that. There's no giving up on that. So anyway, there's that part. And like I said, I'm looking for where it talked about that he is, here it is. His nomination to fill a seat in the 7-member full board that opened unexpectedly last month with the resignation of Adriana Kugler is pending before the Senate. A vote over advancing his candidacy to the full Senate is expected on Wednesday. So if they vote on Wednesday to push it to the full Senate, I don't know how long it would take and if he would be in position to vote by the 17th. So anyone, if anyone has any stuff on there, any other Lisa Cook drama? No, they're just they're going through. So she's being investigated by the Department of Justice, and now she's fighting the firing. But technically, Trump has removed her from office for cause, but she's pushed back against it. So we have to see. And as far as the independence, yeah, there's definitely. As y'all know, I call it the Trump Fed virus because he is infiltrating from the inside the Fed, and it puts their mandate at risk. There's a lot of talk about what effect it has outside of the United States. I don't know if that's as much of a concern as anything. So, no, the main headlines this morning, of course, everything to do with the Epstein stuff and Trump, and I'm not going to get into it. That has no effect at all on, mortgage rates and pricing. So, but it's all about the whole birthday book and this whole thing. And, none of that's going to matter for mortgage rates and pricing. Looking at other stuff. Let's see if there's anything good here. 5 things you need to know. Blah. Nope, not this one. Messy family. If you know, who cares? Microsoft deal for AI computing. Who cares? Gold reach another record as investors bet on a wave of Fed rate cuts. So that one kind of catches my attention, but still not much there. Taking a look here on this one. This one was an interesting article as we go over the headlines. Staffing crisis unfolds at BLS with a third of leadership jobs now vacant. They're saying that you can't make these changes that they want to make until they fill positions. There's a hiring freeze until October. And basically they're blaming Doge and early retirements that were, encouraged and all that for leaving the BLS in a position where they're running on a ghost staff, and that they can't make these changes that they're going to need to make. But we'll see. We'll see how that kind of rolls out there. But jobs and CPI are the big ones. Yeah. So Thursday we get the CPI inflation data. How much? I don't think that we have to worry about that as much as we normally would. Normally, I would be looking at locking some loans heading into that. I'm not necessarily concerned about that this time around. Again, we want to definitely keep an eye on the fact that bonds are here right now, and in just a few minutes, we'll see if they kind of get a little bit of a boost. If they do, it'll only be into positive territory, 5 or 6 basis points. Not enough to really improve rate sheets as they're coming out. And then I think even if we improve through the end of the day and this rally hasn't lost steam, it's going to be the wholesale and consumer inflation data Wednesday, Thursday, the 1-2 punch. Wholesale data, unless it's another shocking report, not going to be a big mover. But we did see it last month move things. And then, of course, Thursday's CPI data will be the big one. And then everything's all bets off until we get to the 17th and we see where things are at there. I'm sure we will get an article from Nick Timiraos talking about the chance of a 50 basis point cut if it's something that is definitely on the table. And right now, markets believe it's a possibility, but it's an outlier. If it were something that was much more on the table, we will see an article about it by Timiraos next week. You'll see it on Monday or Tuesday. We'll see an article from Timiraos. So don't necessarily worry about that. Ron said, I'll be floating now and then locking into the PPI and CPI. Yeah, are you locking into the PPI and CPI, Ron? Ron said he is locking into the PPI. Again, that's tomorrow. The CPI is Thursday. If you got loans closing near term, if they're close to being ready to close in the next couple weeks, I could see locking it because these are some really, really nice rate sheets, and you don't necessarily need to take undue risks, right? When you're at 6.25 compared to where we were at a month ago, which was 6.75. So we've seen rates improve. If we pull this in just a little tighter, we've seen rates improve. I mean, here we were July 18th, and this is September 9th. So let's go to July 9th, and we'll say 2 months ago, rather, we were at 6.75. So there's a big change on that one. Good morning, James Mahan. Good to see you, sir. So I do think we're in a good spot. I wouldn't necessarily be worried about locking into the PPI and CPI this time around, especially if you've got time before they close. Excuse me. I knew that was coming. So, all right. Well, that's it, my friends. Good to see you. We'll see what stuff brings. Tomorrow we'll talk about the jobs markdown, how big that actually was, and we will be leading in to the data. Sometimes I want to do this show a little later just so we can talk about the actual data as it came in instead of talking about it a day later. But it is what it is. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Make it a fantastic one. Bye-bye.